Okay, good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Before we start, I want to go over just a few housekeeping procedures for today. While you're not talking, while Jim is speaking, please stay on mute so there isn't any background noise to interrupt the presentation. Video is optional, but sometimes it's nice to see the person we're speaking with. So if you want to flip it on when you ask a question, please feel free. There's a button I'd like you all to avoid hitting. It's at the bottom of your screen. It's a rectangle with an up arrow. It says present now. Please do not click that, as that will interrupt what is on the screen currently. If you have any questions for Jim, feel free to either unmute yourself and jump in, raise your hand using the raise hand feature, or put the question into the chat, which will allow me to prompt Jim. If you have any technical issues, please put those into the chat and I'll do my best to help you through those. Just be aware that most of the time the issues stem from your own Wi-Fi connections. If anyone has dialed in via telephone today, please send me an email at mfrey@pgahq.com so we can make sure you get your PDR credits. And finally, we are recording this session this morning, and it will be up on our YouTube channel after the fact. So if you need to refer back to it, or if you want to share it with some of your staff who could not join this morning, it will be available. So thanks again for everyone for joining. This is a kind of a play off of our Coaches Corner, which we started last year and seen tremendous success with some of our coaches in the area. So we thought it would be a good idea to have a similar session for golf operations, and we thought Jim Smith would be the perfect person to kick this off. Jim has been at the Philadelphia Cricket Club for a number of years now and has done wonderful things over there, and was recently announced as the PGA of America's 2024 Bill Strausbaugh Award winner. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Jim Smith.
Thanks, Matt. And thanks, everybody, for getting on the call. I will, since this is being recorded and will live in posterity on YouTube, I will do my best not to use any inappropriate language. I'm not making any promises, though, for those of you that know me well. I'm actually, I'm very flattered that you guys would take the time, and if there's any ladies on the call, ladies would take the time to engage with me. I've done a lot of roundtables over the years. I'm not really a fan of sort of a presentation format where I'm the only person talking. I like to make sure that there's engagement. So I would hope that and encourage anybody that has any questions to just jump in at any time and interrupt, because I think these things a lot of times work better conversationally than they do, teacher student. And speaking of that, I am far from innovative. A lot of the stuff that I've done over the years, I've just stolen from other people. Everything that I tell you today is only an opinion. It's not, there's no right or wrong. Some of the things that I'm going to share with you today are things that I have found to be successful, and some of the people that I've been lucky enough to work with that have moved to other jobs have found successful. But it doesn't mean that what I share is going to be successful everywhere. And when they asked me to do this, I guess the question was, what should we be talking about? And one of the things that Matt and Jeff and others suggested was talk about staff, talk about attracting and retaining people, talk about how do you build a great staff, what all of us can be better off, and our clubs can be better off with great staff. Well, how do you get there? Excuse me. And I know that sometimes, like, I've been around long enough to know that I know I'm at the cricket club, and I know that there's going to be a perception that I'm at a club that has sort of unlimited resources, and that maybe my situation isn't the same as others, and maybe I've got it easier because we have more money to work with. Whatever. I get that those kinds of things exist. I want to share something with you ahead of talking a little bit about staff. And what I'm going to share, give me a second here. Let's see here. Sorry, this is just going to take a second. right, dismiss this. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Do I need to make that bigger, maybe?
Maybe a little bit if you can.
How do I do that?
There's a little slider at the bottom right corner. You can move that up and down.
Right here. All right, hold on. Oh, that's too big. Everybody see that?
Yes.
This was my schedule. This is my staff in 2006 at the cricket club, my first year. This is for 45 holes of golf. Right? 2 head pros, 4 golf professionals, 4 guys working outside, and about 60 to 65 hours a week in hourly help, plus the range. This is 2006. In 2006, we did 40,000 rounds of golf across the 3 golf courses. Everybody take a mental picture of that one. Stop sharing. Bear with me here. Oop. Everybody see that one?
Yes.
So this, we're not capturing the whole thing, so give me a second here. Whoop. This is my staff this year. So you can see up top here, we have a total of across the 2 campuses. This is what I would call inside staff. So this would be golf professionals, interns, and any hourly staff. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 people. I had 6 my first year. All right. I'm going to go back here. Give me a sec. This is my outside team. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's 15 people on the outside team. In 2006, I had 4.5. So we did 40,000 rounds of golf in 2006. This year, we're on budget to probably do about 65,000 rounds of golf. Oh. Between the 3 campuses. Now, the reason why I share this with you is, you know, that growth from 40 to 65 is about 60%. But my growth in staff is over 200%. Right? And this is probably something that I'm going to stop sharing here for a second. You know, this is something that we're all confronted with, which is, how can we grow our staffs? How can we get our leaders of our clubs, the owners of our clubs, to invest more money into people? Not easy, right? You know, one of the hardest things, and you may or may not have heard this term, but we now use the term often called dollars per round. We all use it for merchandising. I was trying to figure out a way to communicate to my leadership back in 06, 07, 08, how underspent and how much we were behind other clubs in our staff model. And sitting in board meetings or sitting with an owner, it's kind of difficult sometimes to tighten it up and make it a really easily understood metric. And honestly, I was just thinking about the dollars per round with merchandise, and I said, well, why don't I figure out how much I'm spending per round on staff? Because that might be an easy way for me to articulate to my board, you know, where we stood relative to other clubs. So in its very most simple application, you take all the money that you're going to spend on your team, and that's golf professionals and outside services. You don't count the top person. So in my case, my analysis doesn't count me. You know, I'm looking at Sam on my screen. Sam wouldn't count his at Chester Valley. But everybody else, what do you pay them in payroll, taxes, bennies, whatever? What's budgeted, right? If you take that number and you divide that by the number of rounds of golf played, you have how much money the club is spending per round in golf shop labor. It's pretty simple, right? It's not that complicated. Give me a second here. I got a huge bug. So I ran that number, and that number by itself doesn't really tell the story, because that number could be $5 a round, it could be $10 a round, it could be $15 a round. That doesn't really didn't tell the story that I was trying to tell. What I needed to do was I needed to go to our competitors and our peer clubs, and I needed to show my leaders that what we were spending per round was lagging behind clubs that our leaders considered to be our competitors for members, or peer clubs, clubs that we aspired to be like. And by the way, I'm going to oversimplify this whole discussion, which I'll explain in a second. So basically, I went out to some of the clubs that are kind of in our geographic area. So I went to White Marsh, Sunnybrook, Manny's, Huntington Valley. And of course, you know, one of the nice things about us all being professionals is we're pretty willing to share information with each other. So nobody really had any concerns about sharing their info with me. And then the other thing that I did was I asked our leaders, I said, who do you think are our peer clubs? And I will guarantee you that every leader will put into a peer club a club that might be better than us, because they think they're better than, like, everybody thinks we're better than we really are, right? So at the time that I did this, you know, our peer clubs that my leaders were pointing at were clubs like Marion, Saucon Valley, Baldus Raw, Wingfoot, you know, big 36-hole facilities, right? So what did I do? I went out and I called all those guys, and I got their payroll information, and I ran an analysis. And basically, I had a very simple spreadsheet that showed my leaders, and this is in 2007. I had this spreadsheet that showed our leaders that we were spending about $6 per round in labor. Our competitors were at like $9 per round, and the clubs that they aspired to be, that they considered peer clubs, were in the $12 to $13 range. We were half of what those clubs they thought we should be like. How many of us have had somebody walk in and go, oh my God, I was at Club XYZ, man, the service there was off the charts. Like, why can't we do that? Right? It happens to all of us. Well, the reason why we can't is because you're spending half of the amount of money on labor that they are. That's why. And, you know, nobody's gonna convince me otherwise. The number one thing that determines a great golf experience is people. And it's the staff that meets and greets people, that gets them onto the golf course, and it's the staff on the golf course that takes care of it. A great golf course without people is just going to be a field of high grass. A golf operation, and I'm going to use Pine Valley as an example because we all know and recognize it as one of the number one golf course in the world. How many of you have been to Pine Valley? Most of you, I'm guessing, right? The thing about Pine Valley that to me is so good, their staff is so good. Like, they make that experience as good as it really is. If we all went over there and there wasn't a person to meet and greet us, yeah, we could go play the golf course and we'd say, yeah, it's a great golf course, but like, it wouldn't be the same experience without the people. So I know that maybe it's pie in the sky to suggest that our leaders will listen to us and understand. You know, we can passionately say, we need to hire more people. We need to spend more money, right? All of us can say that. But if you don't have some kind of measurement that shows your leaders that what they're spending isn't up to snuff for what they want to be, you're going to have a really hard time getting the extra money. And alternatively, and this is the good news, bad news case with dollars per round. If we're at a club where the service is perceived not to be up to snuff, and you run this analysis and you find that you're spending more than all of the clubs that you're comparing yourself to, then you better look internally and go, what am I doing wrong? Because it's not a dollar issue at that point, as much as it is a management issue. Making sure that you have the dollars being spent in a way that's most effective. So I think for many of you, if you haven't used this tool before, and I'm happy to work with you, you know, on the side if I can help you with it, but like, scores and scores of guys that I've talked to have started using this in presentations, and it's made a really big difference in getting leadership to start to understand what the right amount of money is to spend. You're not going to get it every time, but at least you're going to have something that's data driven. Any questions on that? I mean, I spent a lot of time talking about a pretty simple idea, right?
I did want to mention that we gathered a lot of the sections operations payroll numbers and such from our operations survey earlier this year, and we'll be able to distribute that in the coming months.
Okay. By the way, the early part of this, go ahead.
Hey, Jimmy, Ed Gibson here. Eddie, I heard you say your inside numbers went from 6 to 18, so 3 times as much. What did the outside numbers go to again?
The outside numbers went from 4.5 to 15. Now, keep in mind too, Ed, and you guys know my club. Like one of the
I get it.
Yeah, one of the oversimplifications with the dollars per round model is that there are going to be some vagaries in how money is spent. So, like in my case, I'm going to be less efficient than, and I see, Caldwell's on the call, right? So at DuPont, all of the play comes out of one location, correct, Mike?
Actually, no. We have 3 different spots. That's what I was going to ask. We basically run like 3 different campuses here.
On the same way.
So we are very spread out, and it's our biggest challenge.
Your number should be higher than like mine, because since we're not as efficient, right? Let's use trying to think of like Baltusrol, right? Simple example. 2 great golf courses, but everybody comes out of one shop. The starting location is in the same location. They'll spend a little less money than a place that has to staff 2, 3, 4 locations like us, right? So you have to take that into account when you're doing the comparables.
And what's that number, Jim, that you're trying to get to? Would you say is acceptable?
I'm going to overgeneralize when I say this, and this is based on my research. Now, keep in mind that I have not researched every club. I've only researched clubs that are really, that I need to use for comparables for me, right? But generally speaking, this is what I found. If you're spending less than $10 per round, your owner or your members are total nickel rockets and put no value on staff. They might as well just hire, toll takers, right? There's just not, under $10 a round is really low. Now, don't get me wrong. Like if the model of a place is, it's not about service, it's literally just boom, 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 and we don't have to provide great service because the demand's so high, fine. I guess that you can have that. Somewhere between 10 and 20 is where you're going to find most private clubs will fall. With a club, just using me as cricket as an example, we're about $18 a round this year. But again, it's not what my number is as much as it is how my number compares to the clubs that I'm being compared to. What clubs is a potential member thinking about joining, and what do they spend, right? And what number does a club that we aspire to be like, what are they spending? You start to see the really high-end, heavy-duty service clubs. A lot of times they'll be spending 20, 25. I've even seen $30 a round on labor. Destination clubs have a tendency to be that way, right? Where people are coming in for 2, 3 days, they're staying in cottages. Those places tend to have more staff than traditional clubs that might just be, very family oriented and catered towards locals. But I think the most important thing is that when you run your own analysis, you have to identify the clubs that you want to compare yourself to, and then go gather that info, and that will be different for every club, right? Brian up in Penn State is going to probably pay a little bit less. One of the main reasons is the cost of living in Penn State's lower, right? So you're not paying as much per hour for somebody as I am in Philadelphia. However, you can use multipliers very quickly, right? You can, if the cost of living in Penn State is 86% of Philadelphia, well, then you can figure out yours and then add 14% compared to me, right? So I jokingly say this: use math, like use data, figure out how to use data in a way. But if you're going to use data, you have to accept what it tells you. Don't use data if it only supports what you're trying to do, because then it's not really using data. And we've all seen situations like that where you're getting, the political campaigns right now. The only data that you're getting from the Democrats or the Republicans is data that supports their arguments, right? We don't want to be put in that position. And the next, I was asked a couple questions about this, so I'm kind of answering the questions to get this going. The second thing about building out a great staff is, part A is, okay, how much money do I have to spend, right? And then part B is, what's the best way to staff my operation that keeps my staff happy? And I'm being really careful when I say this, okay? I don't care. If somebody said to me, you can make a member happy or a staff member happy, 10 out of 10 times I'm going to make the staff member happy. Because if they're happy, they'll go make the member happy for me, okay? So when I'm thinking about how I schedule people and how many people I hire and what their schedules look like and what their job looks like, all I'm thinking about is what kind of system can I create where when people come into that system, they really like it. And there's going to be stuff that they don't like in all of our systems, right? But if I can create a system where a new staff member comes in on the outside team or a new professional comes in on the inside team and they enjoy being at the cricket club, I'm going to benefit from their happiness, because when I need them to make the members happy, they're going to go do it for me, right? We've all had the employee who's miserable. Good luck getting that person to go to the rack for you, because they just won't. So one of the questions I was asked, like, all right, how do you create that? How do you create a culture that keeps people happy? And there's not an easy answer to that. One of the most important things to me is, excuse me, and again, this is a math problem. How many hours does it take to provide the service that you want to provide or need to provide at your place? All right, and I'll just use me again. I'm going to always use cricket as an example. We're open 7 days a week, outings on Mondays, regular play Tuesday through Sunday. So we're basically, and I'm just going to use very round numbers. Pro shop's open 7, and I'm only using the golf shop for this illustration. Pro shop's open from 7 in the morning till 6 at night. That's 11 hours a day. Multiply the 11 times 6 days. That's 66 man hours if one person was in the golf shop, right? How many people do I need, in my opinion, to provide the right level of service at all times? No strangeness. Well, I've got 3 golf shops. So you can take that 66 and you can multiply it by 3, right? So now I'm at 198 with 3 different, right? 198 man hours, okay? At St. Martin's, I only need 1 person. At Militia Hill, I only need 1 person. At Wissahickon, which is where most of our activity is, to be able to handle tournaments, people shopping in the shop, admin, whatever it is, I need 5 people all day, right? So I'm going to take I'm going to take 66 times 5 hours, which gives me 330 man hours at WIS. I'm going to take another 66 hours for Militia Hill, and I'm going to take another 66 hours at St. Martin's. So for me, I need 7 people on at all times in order to provide what I need to provide. And that comes out to 462 man hours a week. All makes sense, right? So how do I fill the 462? Do I hire 8 people and they all work 60 hours a week, which gives me 480 man hours, right? Do I hire 10 people and they all work 46 hours a week? That gives me 460 hours, right? Which of those 2 jobs is going to be more attractive to somebody? 60 hours a week or 40 hours a week? We all know the answer, right? 40, right? So I just backed into the fact that I need 10 people. But some people don't do the math. They actually don't think about what do I really have to do to provide service? Now, I may choose, in my case, to do 462, I may choose to hire 11 people. And I may have them work 37 hours a week. And then it gives me a little extra time on top for all the other things that pop up, right? So trying to figure out the number of man hours that you actually have to staff on average, and then dividing it by the number of people, like by the number of hours that you want each staff member to work, that tells you how many people you need on your team. Don't do it the other way, which is to hire who you hire, and then it's like, oh, you know what, you got to work 70 hours this week because we need you this week. Because in my experience, the number one thing to keep people happy is giving them a reasonable schedule. And when I say reasonable, meaning they don't have to work their ass off, and they know what their schedule is well in advance. You guys have probably heard I do 4-day work weeks for my team. If you haven't, and my guys outside work 3 days. And basically, we don't do half days here just because my staff told me I'd rather come there 4 days and work from 7 to 6 and work 44 hours than have to come there 5 days, and 2 of the days are half days, and I'm 35 minutes away, and I just wasted basically, those 2 half days. It almost feels like it's a full day because I've wasted the day. So if you can figure out how to do it, make it a math problem and back into what the best structure is. And by the way, this is something that you may not be able to get to right away, but you should have a goal. Like your goal should be, this is what my goal is. And by the way, my philosophy of working people 4 days a week and 40 to 45 hours a week isn't the right I'm not saying that's the right philosophy. Some places, they work their guys 50 hours a week or 55 because some of that's teaching and they're making money while they're on the clock, right? There's no right way to do this, but everybody can turn it into a math problem and actually figure out what the right amount of staff is. Any questions on that before I dive into a couple other?
Yeah, Adam, if you still have a question, go ahead.
Yeah, Jim, this actually relates back to the dollars per round. Dollars per round, when you're computing that does not include the golf manager, whoever that is, the head golf professional, director of golf. That does not include their compensation, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, because that, you and me and the guys that lead the operations, we're not necessarily in behind the counter, or shouldn't be behind the counter, delivery or grabbing bags. Our job is to, I like to say our job is to make sure the right people are in the right places doing the right things at the right times. That's what we get paid to do. So we're not part of that. That's correct.
Got it. And Matt, you had mentioned the section is going to compile some data on that and share that with the section. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. We're still going through the results, and we're going to share it with Joe Dowdy, our career consultant, first. But yeah, we have that information from the op survey.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
And Jim, real quick, Jeff asked, how do you deal with the variables in the golf operations budgets? As example, some clubs use locker room staff, etc.
So when you're doing your, just make sure that you're comparing it, right, to the exact apples to apples, right, or oranges to oranges. So when you're doing the comparables, just make sure that the people that you're comparing yourself to, they're including the same staff as you're including. Again, that's where the comparisons become so valuable. By itself, $17 per round at the cricket club doesn't tell a story. If I said to my board today, hey, we spend $16 per round, they're going to be like, what? Who? Huh? What does that mean? Right? But when I say, yeah, and Sunnybrook spends 20, how do you like underspending Sunnybrook? Right? Which a lot of our members consider to be that's like the club right next to us where, as you get a little bit older, you join over there, and the perception is it's less expensive there than it is here, yet they spend $4 more per round. How do you like hearing that? Right? That's where it becomes valuable. Just some general philosophies. And again, I can't stress enough, these are only things that have worked for me. I don't espouse that they work for everybody, but these are just some general things that I focus on to try to make sure that our staff is strong and the culture is strong. So one is, we all have that year-round seasonal issue. And it's changed a lot in the last 4 or 5 years. I went to our club. We no longer have any staff that has to go south for the winter. Now, if they want to, they can, but we have figured out, I went to the leaders and said, listen, if you want to attract really talented people, we have to give them year-round employment so that they can sign a lease for an apartment and live in the same place, so that they're not scrambling to find a place in Naples that's $3,000 a month and 6 guys have to split because you can't find anywhere else to live, right? There's definitely benefits to our teams going south, but my experience has been if we didn't make the shift to year-round employment for basically everybody, we were going to start losing out on staff. Now, I'll say with a caveat, year-round employment for me is not 12 months. We guarantee all of our staff a minimum of 9 months. Most of them work 10. We'll lay them off typically in December and January, and they're actually, listen, we all know what a grind the golf business is. Most people are like, great, I'll sit on my couch, for 2 months and I'll collect unemployment. I consider that year round, right? That's very different than saying to somebody, you're done November 1st and you can come back mid-April. You can't sit on your couch for 5.5 or 6 months. Is there a cost associated with that? Yep, there is. But if you're looking for continuity, you're looking for the best staff possible, you better be prepared to have them work 9 or 10 months. And something that we've been hyper successful with, and this is probably more appropriate for private clubs than it is for public, but we actually send an email out this time of year. Our guys that get laid off do side jobs for the members. Members pay them $25 an hour in cash. They do painting. Literally, my guys are booked to the brim. I have 5 guys that do this during the winter. They probably, I can't tell you how much money they make. They basically work as much as they want. And the whole pitch is to the members, hey, we've got great staff. We don't keep them year round. If you can keep them engaged doing some stuff at your house, carpentry, painting, yard, whatever it is, please reach out. And it's crazy how much support we get from the members to do that. So it's just a simple way for guys to make some extra money. So that year-round seasonal thing, I think, is going to become bigger and bigger. And for those of you who, this is a bigger discussion, right? But the compensation issue in the PGA and people, paying more money. One of the things that's starting to happen right now is clubs like mine and others are paying their staff to be year-round. What do you think that's doing to the clubs in Florida? Guess what they're now doing? They're now offering more money. They're now trying to get people to be year-round. So what that's doing is that's starting to raise compensation levels, which is good for the PGA in general. But you just have to be prepared that you're going to have more competition for staff. And in my opinion, being able to offer 9, 10, 11, 12-month employment is going to be key to you getting good people. And it's only going to happen more over the next 5 or 10 years. So that's one thing. As you already know, I'm a big proponent of, in today's day and age, I think people prefer to work less, even if they make less. That work-life balance has never been more valuable. I think I mentioned to you, I have 12 guys on my outside team plus 3 interns. Of the 12 guys on my outside team, 2 of them are year-round, 12 months. The other 10 guys are 9 or 10 months. The youngest person in that group is 26. All of them are career-driven people. This is their only job. And they all work 3 days a week in season, 3.5 on the shoulder seasons. I have had, I don't know, a dozen opportunities for these guys to get director of outside service positions at some really nice spots in Philadelphia and otherwise. Not one of them has taken a job yet. And the reason is because I don't want to work 5 or 6 or 7 days a week. I'd rather make 60 or 70 grand doing my schedule than make 100 and get fried. And I'm, just saying, my guys, that's their mentality. I just think that the number of people out there that are willing to work that much is dwindling. And if we don't adapt to that, which is shorter work weeks, we're going to have problems. If I have $120,000 available for my director of outside services job, I'm not going to hire one guy for that role. I'm going to pay two guys 60 and have them each work 3 days. And I'll get two guys that'll be happier because they're not busting it. It's just, maybe money doesn't motivate people the same way as it used to, but that just seems to be the case in my world. And then the last thing for big picture wise, and I think this is one of the most important things that we do as managers, we have to be the people going to our teams before they come to us. How many of us have had somebody approach us and go, I feel like I'm being treated a little unfairly. I feel like I deserve more money, whatever, right? The minute that conversation happens, you're in a box, right? It's the same thing with us and our employers. Doesn't it kind of suck if we have to go to our employer and ask for more? Wouldn't it be nice if our employer came to us and said, you know what? Hey, Jim, you're doing an awesome job. I'm going to give you a $50,000 raise, right? Wouldn't that be nice? That happened to me 10 years ago. I didn't ask for it. The leaders at my club came to me and basically said, we want you here. We're going to give you a raise without me even asking. Like, I'm going to run through a wall for these people, right? That's what we need to be doing for our team. And it's not just about comp. It's about communication. It's about, what can I do to make you happy? How can I support you? What's going on in your lives? Like, it's about recognizing people's job when they do a great job. One of the things that we make a big deal out of here is every time I get an email from anybody that compliments the job that somebody on the team did, I share it with the entire golf email list, which has 80 people on it, our executive committee and our golf committee, every time. I don't care if people say I'm sending too many emails, but every time somebody gets highlighted in one of those, and I don't send the email out like in a way that makes everybody else feel cruddy. I send the email and say, hey, folks, this is yet another example of the fact that people notice and appreciate the job that we do, right? So recognizing people without being asked to recognize people. So to me, I think that to create great culture, you have to genuinely want what's best for your people, and you got to demonstrate it. It's really easy to talk a good game, but doing the things before they ask us to do those things, that is the number one differentiator between a great employer and an average employer, in my opinion. Any questions on that? I'm going to get into just a couple nitty-gritty things too, and then we'll be close to done. I'm sorry I'm talking so much. Anything else out there, Matt?
Not yet.
No? Okay. All right. So a few specific things that, and again, these are great culture, great teams aren't one thing. It's an amalgamation of a lot of little things that make it great. Here are some of the little things that we found successful here. Everybody on our team gets their schedule for the year at the beginning of the year. We don't do schedules weekly. That's a function of being able to hire year-round full-time employees and not have to lean on summer help to the same extent that other places do. It lets me basically deliver schedules. I know Mike Ferguson's on the call, and Mike worked with us for 4 years. I could give Mike his schedule for the entire year basically in February, which means Mike, if he and his wife wanted to sneak away to the shore, he basically could work with one of the guys on the team and switch schedules out, because that's another thing. Once the schedule goes out, I don't care who covers it. Switch out all you want. So if you want to take 3 days off, my daughter just got back from her honeymoon. She spent 9 days in Scotland. Ahead of that, due to switches, she worked, I think, 10 consecutive days, but then she was able to be away with no worries. She didn't miss any shifts. So I put it in the hands of the staff to be able to switch stuff out. That's one of the benefits of having schedules that are done far in advance. We all want our staffs, to make as much as we can. Sometimes, and this is just a little side note, if I went into the club and I said to them, I want to raise my payroll by $100,000, here's why, and I have all the data, okay? They can make that decision. Another way for me to attack that is, hey, I want $100,000 in an expense account, and I want to give everybody on the team a $3,000 fees, dues, travel expense account. And I can get that raised to that person, not through payroll, but I can do it through an expense account. The benefit of doing that is that there's no taxes paid by the staff member or the club. There's no matching taxes. It's much less expensive to do it that way. And it's a lot easier for me to say to this. So what I do with my staff is they all have an expense account. And basically at the end of they track it in an Excel spreadsheet. And then in October, they submit it and we reimburse them. It's literally that simple. But it's a different way to increase people's job value as opposed to just saying, hey, I'm going to give you 50 more bucks a week, which is $2,600 a year. A lot of times they'll find that has greater value. And everybody likes to have an expense account. It feels good. I can spend it on whatever I want. And that's another way to do it. I don't know about golf access for you guys, but that's huge here. Highly, highly encourage our staff, doesn't matter outside, inside, play as much golf as you can. There's no restrictions on when they can play. I'm a big believer getting out and playing with members is the best way to develop relationships. And part of the reason why people work at our clubs is for the network, right? To expand their network, whether it's in the golf business or in a lot of cases, people who work with us at our clubs end up outside the golf business, but they end up working for members or people that they've met at the club. The best way to do that is to encourage people to play as much golf as they can. Today, it's kind of quiet. So 4 of our staff I assigned to go play golf today because I don't need 5 people in the shop today. It's just not that busy. So as much as I can, I think this year, I think so far this year, the average is about everybody on the team's played golf 15 times on a day when they came into work, not expecting to play. How do you think people feel when they walk into work and you say, hey, I want you to go play golf? Right? It's better than not playing, I hope. Yeah, people that don't like to play golf are probably in the wrong business. So getting people on the golf course. Don't underestimate the value of employee meals. I learned that the hard way. And this requires work with your F&B department, but the quality of an employee meal tells a lot about how much the club cares about the staff. If they're just getting fed slop, the perception is going to be that that's what they think of us. So I think that's another tool, right? You go into budgeting season and pick a number, you got $25,000 allocated for employee meals. If you can get that number up to $35,000, that could go a long way into making sure that those meals are better. People notice that stuff. They're little things. 2 things: systems and communication. I'm a big systems guy. I believe in systems. I believe in creating an environment that everybody understands how things are done. And inside of how the system works, you can put your own spin on it. But when a new employee comes on board and they have no idea how things work and there's no continuity and there's no way to do it, that's a much more difficult environment to work in than when they're told this is how we do it. And guess what? If you've got some suggestions on ways to do it better, once you've done it, we're all ears. We want to hear it. The number one, I asked the staff before this, and Ferg, you can weigh in on this. I don't know if Ferg's the only guy that I've worked with on this call, but I asked the staff what the number one thing is that they like about working here. And I was actually shocked by the answer. And it was daily notes that I deliver, communication. So I'm the first guy in every day, and I do a whole summary of what's going on that day. And everybody is instructed when you wake up, check your email. And everybody knows exactly what they have to do. And they know if, we have a VIP coming in to play golf. And then you extrapolate that out. Every event that takes place at the club during the course of the year is on an Excel spreadsheet. In fact, give me a second here. If you don't mind me sharing this. Everybody see that?
Yes.
So this is the master employee spreadsheet that I use. So you can see we're up to October 25th. We had 979 things that required some level of supervision. Anything that goes on in the club that requires any level of supervision goes onto this spreadsheet. And it basically has the date, what it is, what the time is, what type of an event it is it registration, tournament, whatever, what group is impacted by it, where's it located, any notes, and then over here under staff, that's the person responsible for executing it or overseeing it. This is given out to everybody 3 months in advance. So in January, I'll give everybody their April responsibilities. In February, I'll give them May. In March, I'll give them June. So 3 months ahead of time, everybody knows exactly what people are responsible for. It's this level of detail and communication that the staff said they like the most about working here, because there's no surprises. Everybody comes into work and knows exactly what they have to do. And there's always going to be surprises in our business. There's just fires that we have to put out every day. But when it comes to the bigger stuff, if somebody knows that they got to deal with the pro member, which is the 4th and the 5th of November, and I basically tell them on October 10th, oh, by the way, you're doing the pro member, that's going to be a mess, right? The guys that ran the pro member knew that they were doing it in July, so they could start the process of getting ready for it. So I think communication and having systems like that are key to creating an environment that people are happy in. And,
Jim, let me jump in. Obviously, I'm a product of
Mike, have you gained weight?
Shut up, man. This is going on YouTube too. Jesus Christ, it never changes. No, I just like yeah, the systems that you had in place. I mean, when you woke up and you're there at 5:30 sending emails out, I mean, we know, as soon as we get in the car, we've read the email on your phone, or when you get to work, you know what to expect. We have your expectations, and we know that you have the system of trust but verify. You're trusting us to get it done. You're going to verify that it gets done, because we hand everything over to you when it's done. And just knowing every day and every week, every month what's coming up, and we get ahead of it. I mean, I think that's why it just flows so well there. And it made life easier for us as golf professionals, especially when you work long days. You can get ahead, and that's big proponent of you.
I'm big on checklists too. So like every tournament that we run, I will send out 2 weeks ahead of time, basically a tournament summary. So I'll basically outline every event. So Mike might be running the event, but I'm going to basically give him the big picture. And that just makes it easier for him to be able to execute the event. There's nothing left to chance. And by the way, like, I'm an early bird, and you guys know that, right? I'm up really early. If you're not an early bird, there's nothing. Why can't you do this at night? If you're a night owl, do it when, from your house. You could send a note out to the staff the night before. You would be shocked. And I'm sure some of you guys already do this, but like for the people that don't, you'd be shocked at the positive response you'll get from your team. Making sure that they're aware of stuff. Two other things. I want to talk a little bit about outings. Almost all of us deal with outings. Outings generally are a fairly significant revenue source for clubs. There might be some of you that don't have to rely on it as much, but for those of you that do, outings to me are a great way to supplement our staff's compensation. So when I took over at Cricket in 2006, in the contract for the outing was $20 per person that had to be spent in the golf shop, and I own the golf shop. There was nothing budgeted for staff. So the people that were scheduled to work on Monday were basically being asked to work an extra day and not being paid anything extra, which I thought was nonsense. So I went to the club and I said, listen, how about I'll cut a deal with you? I'll give up the guarantee in the shop, because I was like, you know what? If I do my job, they're going to buy in the shop anyway. I don't need the guarantee. And instead of it being 20, give me $15 per person that I can give to the staff when they work on a Monday. And they said yes to it. We're now at $20 per person in the outing fee goes to the staff. So when you look at our outings, a typical outing for us has 200 people in it. So I have $4,000 to pay the people that work on that Monday. So generally we have a head pro, 3 professionals, 4 guys outside, and a locker room guy. So do the math. That's 8 people. Well, divide 8 into 4,000. If it was all done equally, that means they're making $500. Is that my math right? Yeah, they're making $500 just to work that Monday. Do you think I have any problem getting people to work the extra day on Mondays? No. And we, again, just like I told you before, everybody gets their outing schedule in February. So like when Mike was working with us and he was the head pro, Mike probably ran 12 to 15 outings, which meant, yeah, that week, instead of working 4 days, he's working 5. But in addition to his salary, he's now going to get, 7, 8, I mean, there were probably some outings, depending on the size, he made $1,000 just for the day. And that money that goes to the staff and comes from the outing, if you can get your leadership or your owners to understand, it's kind of an in and out, as opposed to the club going, well, that's our money, we shouldn't give it to the staff. It's a little easier to argue it when it's a pass through. So to me, outings represent a really unique opportunity. We supplement our standard payroll with somewhere in the vicinity of about $80,000 to $90,000 a year in outing payments to the staff. And that makes a difference, that makes a big difference. The last thing I'll talk about is just network. I think, we're all in the business, I think, to help others, to make people's golf experiences better. I hope that we're all in the business to make our teams happier. Part of being happier is using their opportunity to work with you as a springboard for something else. And listen, not every club, Scott and I at Marion is really lucky, because the guys that work for Scott are all basically deemed ready for a head pro job, and that's what they're interviewing for, right? When I was at Talamore, it wasn't the type of club where I could develop a golf professional and they would stand a really good chance of getting a head pro job when they're up against somebody from Marion or Shinnecock or wherever else it might be, right? But what I did have was I had my own network of pros where they might have left cricket for an assistant's job or a lead assistant job at one of those clubs that's known as a head pro factory. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever you do to help somebody advance their career, if you gain a reputation for doing that, you're going to always get better people. Like, our teams want to know that we're looking out for their best interest, even if it means their best interest isn't with us long term. And I've had a couple people on my team, who I hated to lose, but I knew that them moving on to something else, whether it was in golf or not, was going to make their life better. So the pain that we suffer by losing those people is made up for by the fact that they are then out championing what we do, that we supported them, that we did the right thing by them. I know it's easy to say that. It sounds a little altruistic, but I don't think you can underestimate. Just do the right thing by your people. And if you do that consistently, the word's going to get out, that you're somebody that they want to work with and for, and at a club that they want to be at. So I can't believe I spent all this time talking. I'm sorry. Any other questions, comments?
Jim, I'm curious, in regards to your interns, how you decide how many you hire and what kind of tasks you give them each year.
So we hire 3 interns on the outside team. And the reason why we do 3 outside is, we're the busiest from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and the days are the longest. So when I cut back from 3.5 for the outside guys on the shoulder seasons to only 3, remember, it goes back to the math problem. I'm losing, half a day times, 12 guys. That equals 3 interns that I need to bring in. So that's the situation out there. We do 2 7-month interns. And again, it's one of the reasons why I'm a fan of hiring interns is it creates a network for me long term, for potential candidates in the future. But the other thing is that, let's say I didn't hire 2 interns and I replaced those 2 with another professional. In my opinion, on at least for me on my team, that means I've got too many pros and it takes too long for them to work their way up the ladder, and they're going to get frustrated because they won't be moving forward quickly enough. Whereas interns let me to keep the professional side a little bit smaller. And then we also hire a teaching intern every year. Brian and I were just joking. We had a young man named Jarrett Foltz, who was one of our outside interns this year, who did great. He took our teaching internship, and this year we actually have hired 2 because our teaching program's so robust. But we have really active, camp programs and sports academies. So we're one of the few clubs that can literally offer interns a chance to just teach for 3 months. That's all they do. And I don't pay them $1 other than what they teach. but because we have enough programming, they're going to do great. I mean, I'll tell you a funny, really quick story. These guys, the interns that we had last year, the teaching interns that we had, in 3 months, they made like 15 grand. I mean, like, these are college kids. They were like, they couldn't believe it, how great it was. And, we let them do their own thing, develop some of their own programs, but we've expanded the intern program, Matt. And I would say mainly because when we use them is in the summer, and that's when we're at our peak period.
Got it. Thank you. Jonathan, go ahead.
Hey, how are you? Yeah, so this has been really valuable for me. I'm the head of outside operations at a course, Bear Trap Dunes, and actually the head golf professionals on here as well. I've been there since March. So this is, I guess, a question that would maybe apply to both of us. So I work bag drop while being the manager. So it's a weird dynamic. I don't sit at a desk. So, it's not like I'm able to access, I sometimes quickly have to send an email with my phone or whatever while I'm working through the staff. But could you talk a little bit about your relationship with your outside, head of outside operations, and sort of like what responsibilities does that person have? And then what are yours? Like, where does the line fall as far as what you're telling him to tell others and then what you overtake?
All right. So we're active, right? So we have 2 directors, and they work 3 days a week. So one guy works Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, one works Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Aside from my daily notes where I'm basically saying to them, all right, here's what's scheduled. So an example is tomorrow we have our fall classic, which is our men's opening or closing day. We have 200 players tomorrow. All right. So one of the things that they already know is we call it PTB. They got to pull the barn. All the cards have to be pulled tomorrow morning, right? So what I'm going to basically do is I'm just going to give them very broad stuff and say, here's what has to be done. And then that's it. Like, I don't really talk to them that much, honestly. Their job is make sure that people are happy, make sure that everybody that comes here has a great time. And frankly, and Jonathan, I'll tell you that on it, your job, in my opinion, is the most important job at a club. Without question. You're more important than the golf professionals because you see and touch everybody, right? I might see and touch 10% of the members because that's how many people might come into the shop during the day. So to me, and again, I'm just saying philosophically, I think that clubs that want to provide a great experience need to invest a lot more in their outside services teams. And having high school kid, I don't want a high school kid representing me or the rest of the staff. I just don't. So I don't get involved because I'm hiring mature people and they know what the mission is, and let them do their job. Mike said it earlier, I'm a trust but verify guy. Like our teaching staff, we have 6 teaching professionals on the staff. I might talk to each guy once a week. And it's like, here's the structure, go do your job. And people appreciate, again, doesn't that make a job more attractive? When somebody has enough confidence and trust in you to basically give you the parameters and go do the job. We've all had micromanagers that we've reported to. It sucks, right? It's just no fun. I will occasionally micromanage if I think I have to, but my main job is to try to create systems and structures and hire people so that I don't have to at all. And your point about delivering the service yourself, yes. My 2 guys outside also do that. Like they're grabbing bags, they're cleaning clubs, they do all that. But I also have built the team in a way where they might have one extra guy outside than they otherwise would need because they need the time to do the admin, to assign caddies, to answer the phone, right? How many crazy requests do you get? Somebody shows up and is like, oh, darn it, I forgot my chew. All right, well, we'll run out and get you some. Who's going to do that if you don't have a body, right? But if you have the body and you go out and grab a tin and you come back, what do? They tell the whole world, can you believe what they did? They ran out and grabbed it for me because that's the level. Those are the kinds of things that you can do if you staff up the right way.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Guys, I'm always available. Like, I've said this a million times. I am genuinely flattered if somebody wants my opinion. So if somebody asks me for it, I always will get back to them. I'll never blow anybody off. So if I can ever be helpful or you want a different perspective. And again, all it is, it's just an opinion. It's just more information for you to absorb and decide what pieces of it you may or may not use. But please don't hesitate to reach out to me if I can ever be helpful. Anything else, Matt?
That is all.
All right.
Hey, Jimmy, thanks a lot, brother. I really appreciate the time, man.
By the way, I did not curse one time.
I know. Yo, I'm so proud of you.
I'm mature. I'm getting more mature. All right, man. Thanks,
I don't
everybody.
think that's the case, but I appreciate the control. So,
all right.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Later. See ya.
buddy.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jim.